I never thought I'd see my own face go viral for all the wrong reasons. It was a quiet Thursday afternoon when I made the mistake of opening my phone, and there it was. A TikTok video posted by my daughter-in-law with the caption, "This is what I deal with every day. An old woman who just sits on her asterisk all day and still complains." Asterisk, my name wasn't mentioned, but everyone knew who she meant. My kitchen was in the background. My voice faintly heard asking if she wanted coffee. She was smirking at the camera as thousands of strangers laughed in the comments. "Lazy granny," one wrote. "She's milking retirement." Another said, "At least she's not wasting space." And all I could do was stare at the screen, at her face, her confident tone, her fake little laugh, the one I used to think was warm. For 30 seconds, I didn't breathe. Not because of the words, but because of the betrayal. The girl I had welcomed into my home, the woman I had treated like a daughter, had turned my life into a public joke. And people were laughing. I wanted to cry, but something inside me wouldn't let me. Instead, I put the phone down, folded my hands on the table, and took a slow, deliberate breath. I told myself, don't react yet, because sometimes silence is louder than anger. I had lived 68 years, raised a son through hunger and heartbreak, worked my fingers raw to build the very walls that girl now lived behind, and she thought I was just a tired, useless old woman? She thought wrong. She thought the internet's applause would protect her from reality. But the thing about storms is, they always hit when you least expect them. As I sat in my chair, the comments kept pouring in. Every second, more notifications, more laughter. Her voice echoed in my head. It's her duty to take care of the house and kids. What else would she do? She said it like she was doing me a favor by letting me exist. But the truth was, I had done everything for her. I had cooked, cleaned, and cared for her children while she slept in. I had paid bills with my pension so they could buy expensive clothes. I had sacrificed every ounce of peace I had left just to keep the family together. And this was how she thanked me, by turning me into a trending topic. I didn't know what hurt more, her laughter or my son's silence in the background of that video. Because I could hear him too. Just a faint chuckle, but enough to tell me everything. He was there. He knew. And he didn't stop her. That was when something inside me shifted. It wasn't anger, and it wasn't sadness. It was colder than both. A quiet decision began forming in the back of my mind, a decision that would change everything. I reached for my coffee, still warm, and took a sip. The bitterness felt right on my tongue. Outside, the birds were singing, the sun painted golden lines across the living room floor, and yet everything inside me was turning to steel. They thought I was harmless. They thought I would do what I always did, clean the mess and keep my mouth shut. But not this time. That day, I promised myself one thing. They would remember who built this house. Because this house was more than bricks and walls. It was my story. My blood, my sweat, my youth, my nights without sleep, my years without rest. And I would be damned if I let anyone mock it. Mock me, and get away with it. I picked up my phone again, but not to argue. I watched the video once more, every word, every expression, every second of disrespect, and I memorized it. Then I smiled. Not out of madness, not out of hurt, but out of clarity. There was something Jasmine, my daughter-in-law, didn't know. Something I had never told anyone, not even my son. Something that would turn her little online fame into the biggest mistake of her life. I didn't delete the video. I didn't comment. I didn't even block her. Because I had just decided. I was going to teach her a lesson she would never forget. And she would never see it coming. Before that video, before the laughter of strangers, before my own son looked through me as if I were invisible, there was a woman named Margaret Hall. That woman was me. But long before I became the old lady on TikTok, I was someone else, someone the world had forgotten, and someone I had almost forgotten myself. I was 28 when I lost everything that mattered. My husband, Daniel, was only 32 when he died in an accident at the steel mill. One wrong step on a night shift, one spark, and everything I knew turned to ash. People came to the funeral with casseroles and pity, whispering things like, "Poor Maggie, she'll never make it alone with that little boy." They said it like it was a fact, like my story had already ended. But they didn't know me. I had a child to feed and a promise to keep. I had sworn to Daniel that our son, Noah, would grow up in a home that was ours, not rented, not borrowed, but built with our own hands. So, I went back to work the very next week. The factory wouldn't take me. Women aren't cut for this kind of labor, they said. So I took 2 other jobs, cleaning offices in the evenings and sewing clothes at night. My fingers bled from the needles, my back ached from scrubbing, and there were nights I didn't sleep at all. But I kept going, because if I stopped, everything stopped. I bought this house in 1988. It wasn't much back then. Cracked walls, leaky roof, and a front yard that was nothing but mud and weeds. But it was mine. I still remember signing those papers with trembling hands and thinking, no one can take this away from me now. Every nail, every tile, every brush of paint, I did it all myself. There were days when I'd come home so tired I couldn't feel my feet, but when I'd see Noah sleeping in that tiny bedroom, I'd smile. Because I was building something he would never forget. People say houses are just bricks and beams, but no. This house was my soul in solid form. Every corner held a piece of me. The kitchen smelled like years of Sunday breakfasts, the hallway echoed with Noah's laughter, and the garden, oh, that little patch of land, bloomed with lemon trees I planted the year I paid off the mortgage. It wasn't just a home. It was proof that I had survived. Years passed. Noah grew into a good man, smart, kind, with his father's smile. He told me once, "Mom, someday I'll take care of you just like you took care of me." I believed him. Maybe that was my mistake. When he met Jasmine, I was happy for him. She was charming, confident, and for a moment, I thought she truly loved him. On their wedding day, I handed them the keys to this house and said, "This is your home now too." I meant it. I gave them the master bedroom, the one with the sunlight that warms your skin at dawn. I moved to the smaller room at the back, the one facing the alley. I told myself it didn't matter. Comfort was for the young. Love, after all, was supposed to be about giving, wasn't it? When their first child was born, I was the one who stayed up all night. I bathed the baby, fed him, and soothed his cries while they rested. I cooked their meals, washed their clothes, and looked after everything so they could focus on their careers. It wasn't a burden. It was love. Or at least that's what I told myself. But somewhere along the way, love turned into labor. My son stopped noticing the things I did. Jasmine stopped saying thank you. The house I built with my hands became a stage where I played the role of the quiet old helper, the woman who made coffee and disappeared. I didn't complain. I thought silence was the price of peace. Until that video. Until I saw my life, my sacrifices, my years of work, turned into a joke for strangers online. That day, sitting in that old armchair with my phone shaking in my hand, I realized something. I had become invisible in the very home I built. I had loved them so much, I'd erased myself completely. But that was about to change. Because for the first time in a long time, I remembered who I used to be, the woman who faced the world with nothing but grit and bare hands. The woman who buried a husband, raised a son, and built a house when everyone said she couldn't. That woman was still here. And she was done being invisible. The next morning, I woke before sunrise, like I always did. Old habits never die, especially the ones built from years of responsibility. The house was still quiet, blanketed in that gray hush between night and morning. I brewed a pot of coffee, the smell filling the kitchen, soft and familiar. For a moment, it almost felt like any other day. Almost. But when I saw Jasmine's pink mug sitting on the counter, the one she never let anyone touch, the anger I'd buried under calm started to stir again. I poured the coffee anyway. I wasn't going to let rage control me. I wanted clarity. Clarity is dangerous when it comes from someone who's been silent too long. At 7 o'clock, I heard footsteps upstairs, heels clicking against the hardwood, the rhythm too confident for someone who'd done something wrong. Jasmine came down the stairs dressed for work, her silk robe tied loosely, her hair tied high like she was walking a runway instead of entering my kitchen. She smiled at me, that same practiced, polished smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Morning, mother-in-law," she said lightly, tapping her phone. "You're up early as usual." I didn't answer. I just watched her as I set a cup in front of her. For a brief second, her smile faltered. "What's wrong?" she asked. I said it simply. "I saw your video." The silence that followed was thick enough to stop the air. She froze, only for a moment, then laughed softly, a little too loud. "Oh, that," she said, waving her hand like it was nothing. "It was just a joke. People online love that kind of content. Don't tell me you took it seriously." My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't rise. I just said, 60,000 people laughing at me. That's not a joke. Before she could respond, another set of footsteps came down the stairs. My son, Noah. His hair was messy, his eyes tired. Still the same little boy who once promised to protect me. But when he looked between us, I saw it. Hesitation. "What's going on here?" he asked. Jasmine was faster. "Your mom's upset about a silly video I made," she said, turning to him with mock innocence. "You know how people online are. It's just content, not personal." Noah sighed. "Mom, it's true. People joke online all the time. Don't let it get to you." And there it was, that single sentence that felt like a knife between my ribs. Don't let it get to you. I looked at him, my son, the man I had worked my whole life to raise. "You think disrespect is just content?" He shifted uncomfortably, rubbing the back of his neck. "I just mean, you might be overreacting." Jasmine didn't mean anything by it. Overreacting. I wanted to laugh, but the sound caught in my throat. I had worked until my bones ached, given them every comfort I never had, and now my own son was defending the woman who humiliated me in front of thousands. Jasmine leaned on the counter, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Mother-in-law, you always say you love taking care of the house and kids. I was just showing that. People found it funny, that's all." "Funny," I repeated quietly. "You filmed me without permission. You turned my life into a punchline." "Please," she scoffed. "You live here for free. You should be grateful we include you at all." The words hit harder than any slap. Grateful we include you. That's when I realized she didn't just disrespect me online. She genuinely believed she was above me. I looked at my son again. "Noah, whose name is on the deed to this house?" He blinked. "What does that have to do with?" "Answer me." He frowned, lost. "Dad's, I guess. Or both of yours." The silence that followed could have cracked the floor beneath us. "This house," I said slowly, "is in my name. I bought it. Every brick, every wall, every inch of it, mine. You've never paid a cent in rent, not for a single day." Jasmine's smirk faltered. Noah's expression changed from confusion to disbelief. I continued, my voice steady as steel. "You sleep in my bedroom. You eat food cooked on my stove. Your children play in the yard I planted with my hands. And you," I turned to Jasmine, "mock me to strangers while using my electricity, my roof, my home." Her eyes hardened. "You're being dramatic." I smiled, that quiet, terrifying kind of smile that means war has just begun. "Maybe. But remember this," I said, leaning forward just enough for her to feel my words. "I built this house once, And if I have to, I'll tear it apart brick by brick before I ever let someone like you own it." Jasmine opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Noah tried to speak, but I held up a hand. "Enough," I said. "Breakfast is getting cold. Enjoy it. It may be your last one in this kitchen." Then I turned away, walked out the back door, and let the morning air fill my lungs. I had been silent for too long. Now it was time to plan. And for the first time in years, I felt alive. That night, sleep never came. The house was silent, but my thoughts were louder than thunder. Every word Jasmine had said kept echoing. "You should be grateful we include you." Grateful. I stared at the ceiling and realized I had spent half my life mistaking silence for peace. I wasn't peaceful. I was erased. By 4 in the morning, I gave up on sleep. I wrapped my robe around me and stepped into the backyard. The air was cool and smelled faintly of lemon from the tree I planted 30 years ago. I touched its trunk and whispered, "You've stood through every storm. Help me stand through this one." When the sun began to rise, a strange calm settled over me. I knew what I had to do, not in anger, but in purpose. I would learn exactly what I was up against. For 2 days, I acted as if nothing had happened. I cooked breakfast, packed the kids' lunches, and even smiled when Jasmine scrolled through her phone at the table. She probably thought I'd forgiven her. That was her first mistake. On the third night, it happened. I was heading to the kitchen for a glass of water when I heard voices coming from the backyard. I stopped near the window, careful not to make a sound. The porch light was off, but the moon lit the garden just enough. Jasmine was outside, pacing, her phone pressed to her ear. Her tone was sharp, cold. "Mom, stop asking. I told you, these things take time." A pause. "No, she hasn't done anything yet. The old lady's tougher than I thought, but she'll slip. They always do." My stomach turned to ice. "I'm telling you, the house is ours as soon as she's gone," Jasmine whispered. "The lawyer said the same thing. Once she dies, Noah inherits everything automatically. He's the only son, so it all comes to us. This place is worth $500,000, Mom. Do you understand what that means?" Each word cut deeper than the last. Her mother's muffled voice crackled through the speaker, but Jasmine kept talking. "Don't worry. I've already checked. There's no will. And you know how sentimental Noah is. He won't let me push the old lady out. But time fixes everything. A few years at most." My hand tightened around the glass I was holding until I thought it might shatter. She was planning her future around my death, counting the days like she was waiting for a sale to begin. Then came the line that froze my heart completely. "And if she does anything stupid, like make a will, I'll find a way to convince Noah it's unfair." You know how easy it is to play the victim. I felt the world tilt beneath me, but instead of breaking, something inside me ignited. A calm fire. A focus I hadn't felt since the day I signed the deed to this house. I slipped back upstairs, my hands trembling, not from fear, but from power. Because Jasmine didn't know one thing. When I heard her first sentence, my thumb had already hit the record button on my phone. Every cruel word, every plan, every $sign she placed on my life, it was all there. I replayed the audio once, just to be sure. Her voice came through crystal clear, dripping with arrogance. 8 minutes and 27 seconds of proof. When it ended, I sat on the edge of my bed and smiled, a slow, steady smile of someone who finally had the upper hand. I thought about all those years people called me soft. About every time I swallowed an insult to keep peace in this house. About how Jasmine mistook kindness for weakness. She had no idea who she was dealing with. Because women like me don't crumble. We calculate. And when we finally move, we don't miss. I slid my phone beneath my pillow, close enough to feel its weight, the weight of evidence of justice. I whispered to the dark. Game on, sweetheart. By morning, I had a plan. It wouldn't be loud. It wouldn't be messy. It would be precise. And when it was done, she wouldn't even know how she lost everything, until it was too late. The morning after I heard Jasmine's call, I woke up with a stillness that felt almost unnatural. The kind of calm that comes right before a storm breaks. I went about the day as if nothing had happened, cooked breakfast, folded laundry, smiled when Jasmine asked if I'd seen her red heels. Check under the couch, I said. She laughed, completely unaware that every second she spent breathing my air was now borrowed time. After they left for work, I sat by the kitchen window, sipped my coffee, and began to plan, not out of revenge, but out of survival. Jasmine wanted my house. I was going to make sure she'd never touch it, not even in her dreams. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my old contacts. It had been years since I called Harold Lane, the lawyer who helped me buy this house 3 decades ago. Back then, I was just a widow trying to sign papers with shaking hands. Now, I was the woman protecting everything she had built. When Harold answered, his voice was warm, familiar. Maggie Hall. I was just telling someone about you last week. Haven't heard from you in ages. Harold, I said calmly, I need your help again, and I need it to stay between us. He paused. Sounds serious. It is, I said. Someone's planning to take what's mine. Within an hour, I was sitting across from him in his old office. The same oak desk, the same dusty books, but this time I wasn't scared. I told him everything, from the viral video to the phone recording. He listened quietly, his eyes narrowing. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and said, You've got 2 problems, trust and timing. But both can be fixed. He explained everything. How I could create a living trust in my name, how I could designate who truly inherited the property, and how to make sure no one could change it after I was gone. You have every right to secure your assets, he said. And from what I'm hearing, you should do it immediately. I signed the documents that same afternoon. Every pen stroke felt like reclaiming a piece of my life. Harold looked at me when it was done and said, Maggie, whatever storm you're in, you just gave yourself an umbrella. When I walked out of his office, I didn't feel old anymore. I felt powerful. The next step was trickier. I needed someone who could help me quietly change things around the house. Locks, passwords, accounts, without raising suspicion. That's when I thought of Leo. My nephew. The boy who used to help me in the garden when he was 12, now a certified security technician. I called him that evening. Aunt Maggie. Long time, how are you? Better now that I've heard your voice, I said softly. I need a favor, Leo, and I need you to keep it to yourself. He came the next morning, cheerful as ever, unaware of the battlefield he was walking into. When I told him everything, his smile faded, replaced by a quiet fury. They did that to you, he said, shaking his head. Don't worry, Aunt Maggie. I've got you. By the end of the day, the house had new locks, coded entry, and a discreet camera by the front door, invisible, but recording everything. He even helped me transfer ownership of utilities and insurance to my private account. This way, he said, you've got control. They can't kick you out of your own home again. That night, I stood by the window and watched the sun go down behind the lemon tree. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a shadow in my own house. I felt like the foundation itself, unshakable. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. Jasmine stopped making videos for a while. She smiled at me, overly sweet, maybe thinking I'd finally moved on. But she didn't notice the new locks. She didn't notice that my room's light stayed on later than usual. And she definitely didn't notice the small, blinking red light on the shelf near the front door. Leo had helped me install it, a second hidden camera that uploaded everything to a private cloud. Every conversation, every whisper, every secret would now belong to me. because this was no longer just about a house. It was about respect, something you can't buy, fake, or steal. When I lay down that night, I played Jasmine's recorded phone call again. Her words didn't hurt anymore. They fueled me. I thought of Harold's voice echoing in my mind. You just gave yourself an umbrella. He was wrong. I hadn't just found an umbrella. I had built a storm. And the thunder was coming. It's strange how revenge doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, slow and steady, like a tide rising beneath your feet before you realize the shore is gone. For weeks, I waited, calm, patient, smiling at breakfasts, humming in the kitchen. Jasmine believed the silence meant surrender. But in truth, silence was my camouflage. Then, one Friday evening, she handed me a note with a careless grin. Mom, Noah, and I are going out of town for the weekend. A little break. You'll manage the kids, right? I nodded, hiding my smile. Of course, dear. Have fun. She had no idea she'd just given me exactly what I needed. Time. The moment their car disappeared down the street, the air inside the house changed. For the first time in years, it felt mine again. I locked the front door, drew the curtains, and called Leo. It's time, I said simply. He didn't ask questions. He just replied, I'll be there in 10. When he arrived, we got to work. Every move was methodical, quiet, precise. We started with the documents, birth certificates, bank statements, property records, all of which I had neatly stored. We boxed every belonging that wasn't mine. Jasmine's designer handbags, her piles of clothes, the endless makeup trays, and the untouched kitchen gadgets she flaunted for show. I wasn't throwing them away. I was reclaiming space. Each box was labeled and sealed. Leo carried them out to the garage, where a small moving truck waited. Where should I take them? He asked. To storage, I said. Let her earn them back when she learns respect. Next came the locks. The old brass knobs were replaced with digital keypads. Leo set them with codes only I knew. If she tries to break in, he warned, the system will alert your phone instantly. Good. Let her try. By the time the sun began to dip, the house looked different. Lighter. The scent of lavender replaced Jasmine's overpowering perfumes. The noise of clutter was gone. My home breathed again. I walked through every room slowly, the kitchen, the hall, the master bedroom. My hands brushed the walls, the same ones I had painted 30 years ago. Every mark, every scratch told a story. For the first time in so long, I felt their warmth again. In the living room, I paused at the family portrait, the one Jasmine insisted on hanging near the door. Her smile beamed brighter than anyone's. I took it down gently and set it face down on the table. Then, I replaced it with the old photo of me, Noah, and his father Daniel, standing outside the same house when it was new. Back then, the paint was still wet, the garden bare. But the pride in our faces was something no camera could fake. I whispered, Welcome home, Maggie. Leo smiled from the doorway. Feels like you took your house back. I nodded. No, Leo. I took myself back. By nightfall, everything was done. The house gleamed, every room in order, the air peaceful. I brewed a cup of tea and sat by the window, watching the streetlights flicker on. It was the first time in years that I felt peace, real, unbroken peace. But deep inside, I knew the storm wasn't over yet. Jasmine wouldn't stay quiet once she found out. She'd scream, threaten, cry, maybe even lie. That was fine, because I wasn't afraid anymore. Before going to bed, I placed the voice recording of her phone call onto a small USB drive and sealed it in an envelope marked for Noah. I slipped it inside my desk drawer. When the truth needed to come out, it would, in my words, not hers. I turned off the lights, stood by the door, and looked around one last time. My home was still. My heart was steady. And in that moment, I finally understood something I'd forgotten long ago. Dignity isn't given, it's claimed. As I lay down, the quiet wrapped around me like a blanket. No more fake smiles, no more whispers behind my back, no more walking on eggshells in my own house. Tomorrow, they'd come back. Tomorrow, everything would change. And when they did, they'd find a house locked, a woman unbroken, and a truth waiting like thunder in the clouds. Because their weekend away was my weekend of freedom. And by the time the sun rose again, I wasn't just Margaret Hall, the quiet old woman who sat all day. I was the storm they never saw coming. Sunday evening came like a slow-moving shadow. I heard their car before I saw it, the familiar growl of the engine, the soft laughter from inside. I stood by the window, calm, waiting. The front gate creaked open. Jasmine stepped out first, sunglasses perched on her head, her smile wide, until she noticed the new lock on the door. Her hand froze. Then she turned to Noah. "What's going on?" Noah tried the handle. Locked. He knocked once, then again, harder. I let them wait. 4 years, they made me feel like a guest in my own home. Now it was their turn to stand outside. Finally, I opened the door. Slowly, calmly. "Evening," I said softly. "Welcome home, or should I say, what used to be home." Jasmine's face turned red. "What is this, some kind of joke?" I looked her in the eye. "No jokes today, dear. Just truth." Noah stepped forward. "Mom, why are the locks changed?" "Because I changed them," I replied simply. "This house belongs to me. Always has. And after everything that's happened, it's time things go back to the way they should be." Jasmine scoffed, her voice trembling. "You can't just..." Before she could finish, I held up my phone and pressed play. Her own voice filled the air, loud and clear. "The house is ours as soon as she's gone." The lawyer said the same thing. "Once she dies, Noah inherits everything automatically." Noah's face went pale. Jasmine froze, horror spreading across her face as the recording continued. Every word she'd said that night, every cruel plan, every dollar amount she'd placed on my life. When it ended, the silence was deafening. Noah's eyes filled with disbelief. "Jasmine, tell me this isn't true." She stammered, her lips trembling. I was angry that night. I didn't mean..." "Stop," I said firmly. "You meant every word. And now you'll live with them." Tears welled in Noah's eyes. He turned toward me, shame written across his face. "Mom, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." "I know you didn't, son," I said quietly. "But you let her treat me like I was invisible. You stood beside her while she humiliated me. I don't hate you, Noah, but I hope this moment teaches you something. Silence can hurt just as much as cruelty." Jasmine began to cry, her voice desperate now. "Please, don't do this. We'll make it right." I shook my head. "No, Jasmine. You can't make right what you never respected. I'm not throwing you into the street, but this house is no longer yours to live in. You'll stay with your mother until you learn what it means to value someone who built the life you take for granted." I handed Noah an envelope, the one I'd prepared the night before. Inside are copies of the trust documents. This house will remain mine until the day I choose otherwise. When I'm gone, it will go to the grandchildren, not to you, not to her. The next generation deserves better than greed. Noah nodded slowly, tears slipping down his cheeks. Jasmine said nothing. For the first time, she looked small, not powerful, not cruel, just a woman who finally saw the cost of her own arrogance. I turned away, walking back into the living room where the evening sun cast gold across the floor. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from release. 4 years, I'd carried their disrespect like a weight on my shoulders. Now it was gone. I stood beside the window and whispered, "Peace feels heavy until you earn it." Noah's voice cracked behind me. "Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't look back." "Be better, son. That's apology enough." As they walked out, Jasmine paused at the door. "I never thought you had this in you," she muttered. I smiled faintly. "That's because you never saw me. You only saw what I did for you." When the gate closed behind them, I sat down in my chair, the same one where this story began. Outside, the lemon tree swayed gently, the air smelled like freedom, and for the first time in years, my heart was light. I picked up my tea, took a long sip, and whispered, "They said I just sat all day." They were right, but they never knew I was sitting in power. And that's the truth. If this story touched your heart or made you think twice about how we treat those who built our world, backhand index pointing right, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because every like, every comment, and every share helps us bring you more stories that remind the world. Speech balloon respect isn't about age. It's about humanity. And sometimes, all it takes is one story to open someone's eyes. Tulip.